Hey guys, you ready to let the dogs out?
What? Do what?
Let the dogs out. You know, like, who let the dogs out? Who?
Off the Hook, airing on offthehooksports.com. Your home for real news, real opinions, and what really matters about Tennessee athletics. Always available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, TuneIn, iHeart. Like, share, follow, subscribe. Always available wherever you find your favorite podcasts.
Welcome to the program with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker, and absolutely loaded up today. Plenty to talk about. We'll start from the top. Josh Heupel with an incredible contract extension that takes him from $5 to $9 million. Elite company, to say the least. Also coming up, we'll have Ron Slay, our Wednesday guest. Looking forward to that as he's headed off to Auburn to continue to be an ESPN superstar. I call him the next Jay Billis. And also, we'll talk some Todd Helton as he got snubbed from the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame. So we're loaded up. I want you to hit the like button right now so we can bring more people on board. And just early and often, let's get your response. Good morning, Smoky Mountain Red. Your thoughts on Josh Heupel's contract extension. I'll share mine as well. And as Caleb wrote on offthehooksports.com, which you can check that column out, Caleb just puts him in pretty elite territory. And I thought just an incredibly aggressive but apt move by Tennessee Athletic Director Danny White. Your thoughts?
Yeah, one of my favorite songs out right now was a Taylor Swift song called Bejeweled, and I feel like Josh Heupel is bejeweled right now.
You're a little older. He's got diamonds on the soles of his shoes, a Paul Simon reference. He's not going to be hurting for cash anytime soon.
Yeah, maybe he can bring back the orange pants for some traumatic moments for everybody. Okay, I'm just kidding. This was a move. Guys, Josh Heupel is the 5th highest paid coach in the SEC right now. Let me just name the other 4 real quick. Nick Saban, Jimbo Fisher, Kirby Smart, Brian Kelly. What do they all have in common? They've all played for a national championship. 3 of them, Nick Saban, Kirby Smart, and Jimbo Fisher, have won a national championship. Now, you can think what you want about Jimbo Fisher at Texas A&M right now, but that contract was based on what he did when he was hired at Texas A&M because he's at the time, he was a national championship winning coach. It made sense on paper, just hasn't worked out to this point. Josh Heupel's in that company now, and this is what I believe. And we've talked about this off camera, Dave. We've talked about it over the phone. Josh Heupel has an offense that tons of coaches are trying to figure out now. I talked about Fordham just a couple of years ago. Fordham at the FCS level during the pandemic sent coaches to UCF to study the offense because they want to install it. I think it's pretty clear at some point an NFL team is going to come calling to see if this offense will work in the pros. We know the NFL, recently there's been hiring cutting-edge offensive minds has been all the rage. Everybody's looking for the next Sean McVay with the Rams. That's why Urban Meyer, Cliff Kingsbury, and Matt Rule all got jobs in the NFL. None of whom, outside of Urban Meyer, Matt Rule and Kingsbury didn't have the track record or the resume of success in college to warrant NFL jobs, but they got hired because people wanted to see if their offenses would work at that level. Josh Heupel could end up being the next one of those. Josh Heupel or Lincoln Riley, you pick, because they both kind of run a similar offense. And this move, more than anything, was to keep NFL teams from calling because I don't think they're worried about losing him to Oklahoma. I think you and I know that he's not going back as long as Bob Stoops is there. And Josh Heupel wouldn't leave Tennessee for any other job other than Oklahoma. And Oklahoma, again, is not calling if Oklahoma is not a spot for him if Bob Stoops is still there. So this is all about the NFL. The NFL is going to want to try Josh Heupel's offense at some point. One team's going to want to do it. And Josh Heupel, with this new contract, would be tied for the 5th highest paid coach in the NFL.
Well, you saw Cliff Kingsbury get the job with the Cardinals, and that hasn't exactly worked out. I think he's got quarterback issues when you have to write into a contract that a guy has to practice so much a week. I don't think that's a great sign, but his star was not rising really in the college level. And then an NFL team jumps on board because of the offense he runs. And They're both innovative offenses, not exactly the same if you want to compare what Kingsbury does and what Heupel does. I thought you brought up a really good point in the NFL in that column, because I think it is the NFL that Tennessee fans should fear the most. And in addition to what you said, yes, it's the creative offense, it's all of that, but it's also a mind that was able to adapt from what he ran at Oklahoma to what he's running now, which is significantly different from an offensive standpoint. So it's the adaptability. Throw in what you said about the offense, just if they packaged it up and sent it straight to Tampa Bay or wherever in the NFL, you got to think it's going to work for the short term. But if it doesn't, if there are rule changes and the fact that there's different rules as far as offensive lineman releasing and being able to go downfield, he's going to adapt and make it work. I think he's shown that much. The other thing that maybe gets a little bit lost is he is running the Tennessee program a lot like a GM. Now, I think the days are gone where a guy can demand to be the coach and the GM, Bill Parcells style. I don't think that's going to happen anymore. And I don't think he would necessarily want to do that. But if it came down to, hey, Josh, the GM says, we've got to figure out, do we want this guy or this guy? I think based off salary and productivity, he could give you a good answer there. And yeah, I think that's one of the things that Nick Saban struggled with in particular. I think if they get Drew Brees, they were unsure about the elbow, if you remember back then, but he didn't have complete confidence in the direction of the Dolphins. So I look at this and it really drives home to me a question that was asked about, I would say roughly about 6 or 7 years ago. And I'm sure you heard this again. Please hit the like button. And if you haven't subscribed already, we greatly appreciate it. Like button brings us more people in for the discussion. The thing about Josh Heupel and potentially going to the NFL is he's young. I think he would be a perfect fit there. But Tennessee and the elite jobs in college, which I think there are about 15 to 20. I think Tennessee's in the top 15 range. Those are destination jobs. So the question was 5, 6, 7 years ago, Caleb, is Tennessee a destination job, or is one coach like Lane Kiffin just going to continue to bounce? If Butch Jones had success, would he have bounced elsewhere? And that was the concern. And part of that is because Coach Jones would have their name floated out there in coaching searches at other schools. I'm going to tell you the exact same thing I told you 6 or 7 years ago, and that is Tennessee is a destination job. It's not just because Johnny Majors played at Tennessee. It's not just because Philip Fulmer played at Tennessee. It's the type of school that a coach could set roots in, and as long as he has success and everybody's happy, be the coach for the next 15 or 20 years, as long as he's having success. That's the big caveat. So I think that answers that question, because I did a little bit of digging into Josh Heupel's contract. So my question was, what would he have to pay the university back if he decided to leave before December the 15th, which is technically when the contract is set and the extension is based off that date? So yeah, he has to spend a significant amount of money. We're talking about $6 million if he were to get out of that contract. $6 million. Now, could the Dallas Cowboys see Josh Heupel as the next great head coach and pony up $6 million? Certainly. It wouldn't even be a bump in the road. But a lot of NFL teams couldn't or wouldn't want to, Caleb. A lot of programs that are in that top 15, top 20 range wouldn't want to do that in college football. So the biggest number I take away, even more than a $4 million raise, is $6 million that he would have to pay the university if he took another job tomorrow. It drops to $4 million after December the 15th. So if he had a great season and another school came calling, Oklahoma or anybody, they have to pay $6 million, then $4 million. That's a significant amount of money. It doesn't stop a deal from getting done, but to give a little bit of perspective, you had Lane Kiffin, who had zero leverage, said he had the Washington job. I'm not sure about that. Kind of played Mike Hamilton, got Philip Fulmer fired in the middle of the year. His buyout was $800,000. Well, Southern California didn't even blink at $800,000. That's like, Caleb, me telling you that, hey, I'm going to give you this great job, but I've got to pay $20 to get Caleb. I mean, that is not even an amount of money that's at all registers. So they paid that. But $6 or $4 million is a different world, Caleb. And I think it sends a very clear statement that Josh Heupel realizes what he has. He's happy. He wants to stay. And he wants to enjoy the fruits of his labor. That was actually a bigger number to me than the $5 to $9 million, which is a very significant number as well.
Yeah, so $6 million to me would have not been a big deal 4 years ago. And the reason or even 2 years ago. And actually, the reason I say that, at a school like Tennessee, I've said for years, and you know this, Dave, after Mike Hamilton and the Lane Kiffin fiasco, where you're right, Mike Hamilton got played, he opened up the checkbook for a coach that his whole, whatever you guys think of Lane Kiffin, he didn't have the resume to have the checkbook opened up for him and his staff that he got by Mike Hamilton at the time.
The Raiders thing ended horribly.
Yeah, horribly. I still said it. I said at that time they should have hired Brian Kelly. And man, I mean, I did not know how right I was. I was wrong about my rightness. And so, because I didn't think I think Brian Kelly's a great coach. But as far as the $6 million goes, 4 years ago, I think a school like Tennessee, with the boosters they have, could open up that checkbook. You know, we've seen with Alabama and Texas A&M, you open up the checkbook to get the coach you want. What I would say, though, is nowadays with NIL, and this is going to be a real story, Dave, in the future, I think. You know this. A lot of times when buyouts are paid and salaries are paid, that's boosters opening up checkbooks to pay, to help corral. They're going to spend a lot more of that money now on trying to buy players than they will buying coaches.
That's a good point.
So are you willing to open up the checkbook of $6 million to pay a coach's buyout when that money could be spent if you're USC, for instance? Heupel's not going to leave Tennessee for USC. I'm just saying, if you are USC, wouldn't you rather spend that money buying all the top athletes in California to keep them at USC?
Yeah. And no, I completely, I see that angle now. I didn't at the time. The money's gotten so sidetracked, and it's going to get even more warped with the money that the SEC is going to get out of their next television contract. That maybe $6 million at some point looks like $800,000, but it looks like a lot more than me. Smoky Mountain Red said, just curious. Does Josh seem like an NFL coach to you? I really think he does. To be honest with you, I think he could do either. I don't think there's a big difference nowadays. You know, back in the 90s when I started all this stuff, coaches aspired to get to the NFL because they didn't want to recruit. And they do now because they don't like the NIL and they don't like the transfer portal and all that. And I get that. But coaches don't aspire to the NFL like they used to as a whole. I mean, I think that the NFL in the 90s and early 2000s, Caleb, was viewed as a better job. I don't know that it's viewed as a better job. I think it's just viewed now as a different job.
Yeah, I 100% agree, which is funny because I think coaches had more market value in the 90s in college than they do now. I still think college coaches have pretty good market value and are still more valuable than NFL coaches. But, you know, you're right. How often do we see coaches at odds with GMs, owners? There's so much more politicking with the upper management now than there used to be that I don't think coaches want to be a part of with the NFL. Look, let's just say it. This is why you've talked about this. The reason Saban, because we brought him up, the reason Saban went to Miami was, one, Miami was the one NFL job he would have taken because he loves being in Miami, but two, he hated living in Baton Rouge. We know those two things to be true. We also know, I know Miami felt so wronged by him leaving, particularly Don Shula, but let's not forget, Saban was the one who wanted Drew Brees. The team doctors in the Miami organization stonewalled him from getting Drew Brees. And that's their fault that he's still not at Miami right now. Because, I mean, think about Saban with Drew Brees. He'd probably hire the right offensive coordinator and, you know, things would take off. That is fully on Miami. That's fully on the Dolphins organization. And there's really the head coaches in the NFL is such a revolving door. There are jobs now, I think if you're a coach, the Houston Texans job, I would never take that job. I don't care if I was a running backs coach at a group of 5 school. You could not get me to take the Houston Texans job if I'm aspiring to be a head coach and climb the ladder. Now, if I want a quick payday, sure, it's an NFL job. But there are some NFL jobs that the organizations are so bad, so awful, so embarrassing that if you're trying to climb the coaching ladder, there's no way you take that job because all it'll do is ruin your reputation.
I will say this to Smoky Mountain Red's point. If you compare the jobs, I do think that Josh Heupel instills a belief in young men that you're probably not going to be able to do from year to year in the NFL. I think they're probably a little bit more jaded. They don't want the rah stuff. And I think he's a better fit in that regard for college. But this is how much it's changed just in 20 years. Philip Fulmer used to float his name out there when he was the head coach at Tennessee as an offensive line coach in the NFL because he was considered the best at the time, the best offensive line coach in the nation, regardless of NFL or college. That's how different the jobs were perceived at the time. He would float it, his agent would. Jimmy Sexton would float his name out there for NFL jobs that were assistant coaching jobs as opposed to being the head coach at Tennessee. Nobody would ever make that move anymore. That's long gone. You wouldn't even make a move to be a coordinator. If the New England Patriots came to Lincoln Riley or Josh Heupel or whoever, and Bill Belichick said, yeah, I just, the offense was a complete disaster. I want to hand it over to you 100% written in stone. Here's a contract. It's your offense. No head coach in the Power 5, 75% of the Power 5 schools would take a step down to being a coordinator from a head coach. That wasn't always the case. First part of the program brought to you by AndyMasonRealEstate.com. Go to AndyMasonRealEstate.com, a realtor with over 40 years of experience. His team has that, and they will save you thousands of dollars. Don't make that mistake by going with the wrong realtor. You can absolutely work with AndyMasonRealEstate.com. Best service, best prices in the biz. So hit that like button. It brings more people into the program. And I want to hear from the message board. Are you a little blown away by the number that you saw from $5 to $9 million? I've become a little desensitized, quite frankly. Caleb, when I saw the 5 to 9 million, I thought in the back, the first thought I had was 9 is about where he should be. I'd probably say 8. As you brought up, coaches have been in championship positions before that make that type of money. But I was not completely stunned by 9. What was the first thing that went through your head yesterday?
I'm not going to lie. I was stunned by 9.
Wow. Okay.
And I was stunned because, like I said, I saw the other coaches that are getting the 9 million. And all of them have a resume right now that's better than Heupel. Now, you ask me, now to be fair on this, if you ask me right now, would I hire Josh Heupel or Jimbo Fisher? I'm hiring Josh Heupel, and I'm not thinking twice about it. But Jimbo Fisher's salary is, if you ask me, would I hire Josh Heupel right now or Jimbo Fisher, what I knew about him in 2018, I'd have probably taken Jimbo Fisher. And so that's where I'm kind of a little shocked about this because he's in some really elite company now. And I'm not saying he doesn't deserve it. I think you and I both agree. Josh Heupel, Tennessee's here to stay largely because no one's figuring out this offense anytime soon, which is funny because it's such a simple, easy offense to figure out if you play on offense. But it's no defense is going to figure out this offense anytime soon. So Tennessee's here to stay. They're going to be a fun team to watch. And they're going to start luring even more elite offensive players to the program. And they're about to have the greatest quarterback for the Josh Heupel system that he could ever find come into the program. So I get the money. I still was shocked. And I was just asked if I think Mark Stoops has a better resume. I think Josh Heupel is ahead of Mark Stoops now. Sam Hargrove said that on YouTube. I think Josh Heupel's paid more than Mark Stoops, isn't he, Dave?
Yes. Yeah, I would think so. I can look that up, but I would say he surpassed him at this point.
Yeah, and and Mark Stoops, honestly, winning 10 games at Kentucky, that's the most impressive thing any coach has done in the SEC over the last.
Well, he's at 8.6, which makes a lot of sense. Maybe that was the benchmark number they wanted to get over.
Possibly. Okay, put him ahead of Mark Stoops.
That kind of makes sense. And you could have said 8.75, but 9 has a nice ring to it. So, am I saying that Mark Stoops has a better resume? No, I don't think he does. I think winning 10 games at Kentucky is pretty impressive. Smoky Mountain Red said, I felt $8 million as well. I thought he would need an SEC championship at the least to get to $9 million. But for now, I trust Danny White. I mean, but let's be real honest. When we start talking about some of the TV numbers, we're almost talking monopoly money, aren't we?
I agree. I was surprised at first, but I get it because I'm with you. I looked at some of the new deals that are about to come, and you're right, $9 million. This is that's going to be chump change in a couple of years, and Heupel will be worth a lot more. They're going to have to renegotiate Heupel's contract in 2 or 3 years again, honestly. This reminds me of when Scottie Pippen signed that 7-year deal with the Bulls. Dave, you know what I'm talking about, in 1991?
And then complained about being underpaid for years.
Yeah, and when Jerry Reinsdorf was like, the NBA is about to go global in 1992. We're about to triple in value. Don't sign this deal. Don't sign this deal. And Scottie still signed the deal and then thought he was underpaid the rest of his time. And it's like, yeah, but you took a 7-year deal worth he was making like $2.5 million, and he would have been worth like $10 million more if he just waited 2 years.
No, I don't think of Scottie Pippen as the best negotiator. He did a lot of things great, and I loved watching him play, but I don't know that he helped himself in that regard at all. Zool Beer is the official craft beer of Off the Hook Sports. Go to ZoolBeer.com, XULBeer.com. It's downtown Knoxville, worldwide award-winning craft beer, and it is fantastic. So coming up, we will visit with the one, the only, the superstar, ESPN's own Ron Slay, 104.5, the Zone's Ron Slay, and a former Vol who's pretty darn good. So we're looking forward to that. Hang with me for 2 minutes, and I want to remind you about our friends at Zool Beer Company. Once again, they have parking downtown. Who does that? Back in 2 minutes. Ron Slay up next.
Our family has been creating jewelry since 1986, each piece unique with a story all its own. I'm Rick Terry with Rick Terry Jewelry Designs. I'm a jeweler, and I want to be your jeweler. We're grateful that you chose us to be Knoxville's best jeweler. My family and staff look forward to serving you. So please come see us. Kingston Pike and Campbell Station Road in the heart of Farragut, and downtown on Gay Street, right next to the Tennessee Theater.
Inflation has risen to the highest level in over 40 years, according to the April 2022 U.S. Inflation Calculator. Will your investments provide you the income you need in retirement? Are you losing purchasing power of your savings due to inflation? Simply stated, if the cost of goods and services are 8% higher and you're only earning 4% in your investments, that money buys you less of what you need. Right now is the time to act. Call Guardian Investment Advisors today.
Hey folks, Gary Viles here. I want to personally invite you to North Knoxville's newest sports bar and restaurant.
It's Big Orange Phillies, located in Black Oak Center. And yes folks, it's happening in Halls. Big Orange Phillies offers family-friendly environment with homemade meals and the best deli-style subs around. Billiards, darts, jukebox, shuffleboard, and cornhole, and a full bar. We also offer valet parking on weekends and during special events. We even have a covered back patio. It's happening at Big Orange Phillies. We want, we need, and we appreciate your business.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air. Dare to compare.
Chattanooga, we're at it again. For the 5th year in a row, you voted us best of the best criminal and DUI law firm.
And finalists for best law firm and best personal injury firm.
Thank you for the love, Chattanooga. We won't let you down.
Do you want to own the more that owns every job? Then get to Vassey Lawn and Garden in Cleveland and get you a Toro. I'm David Vassey, here to talk to you about Toro. With a Toro Zero turn, you'll get more out of every minute and you'll reach the finish line faster. At Bassey's, we like to say, no matter if you're mowing 3 acres a week or 11 lawns a day, homeowners and business owners alike find confidence in equipment they can trust from top to bottom.
Bassey Lawn and Garden, Highway 60 North in Cleveland.
Man alive, it's worth the drive.
Got cataracts? We can fix that. Never miss another moment. With a little help from Doctors Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn at ccteyes.com.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Portions of the program brought to you by Bassey Lawn and Garden. Man alive, it's worth the drive. Bassey Lawn and Garden has the industrial mowers, the commercial mowers, the residential mowers that are there for you in Cleveland, Tennessee, whether you're in Knoxville, Chattanooga, or Nashville. You owe it to yourself and your budget to check out Bassey Lawn and Garden. Go to Bassey.com. Ron Slay now joins us. He's en route for his ESPN gig that is just growing by the day. I say watch out, Jay Billis, but he's headed to Auburn, and he's going to be on the TV tonight, and he's just fantastic at it. His appearance brought to you by Zach England of Best of Brock. Zach's got your back. Personal injury attorney in Chattanooga like no other, can stand toe-to-toe with the insurance company, lawyers, and win. Ron, good morning. How are you, sir?
Good morning, good morning, good morning. How you guys doing?
Good. You're working too much, man.
Hey, man, you gotta grind, baby. I remember when I couldn't get on the air. I couldn't do nothing. So I got to take advantage of this. You never know when it'll stop. There
you go. Hey, let me ask you a quick off-the-wall question, because my Dallas Cowboys have Brett Maher, who can't hit an extra point or a field goal for that matter, and cost them a shot at the NFC. Now, the only comparison I could make would be at the free throw line. Did you ever have the yips, which he obviously had? Did you ever have the yips at the free throw line?
No, I'm fortunate to never have to go through any of that, man. Like I had my routine down. I'm trying to think if I had something close to it, man. I think I may have went through a stretch for about 3 games in my pro career where I couldn't, I just wasn't shooting the ball from 3 well. Like people start leaving me open and things of that nature. And I made them pay. I made them pay dear once I got my rhythm. I think I got it like in the 4th game. I had like 8 or 7 threes or something like that. So all that went away. But man, I'm so fortunate I ain't have to never deal with that, man. That's crazy.
Yeah, that sounds awful. I want to roll it around to hoops, but one more. This is a hoops question, but we'll get to the men here in just a second. But you have the UConn-Tennessee rivalry that's back and the Lady Vols, and I think it's so important for the sport. That being said, still to this day, with the legacy that Pat Summitt left, how much pressure continues to be on whoever is in that position, which happens to be Kelly Harper now?
Man, huge shoes to fill. Huge shoes to fill. I think it's unimaginable, you know what I'm saying, to have to walk into that office, you know, day in and day out and not feel that it's somehow you got to be able to produce what Coach Summer was able to produce, you know what I'm saying? Even with people like, man, go be yourself. Even Pat Summer would tell them, just be yourself, it will work out. I mean, that shadow is cast so big, man, and it's like, what are you supposed to do? What is enough? Like, is one championship bringing you back to the creme de la creme of the women's game? Is that enough? No, honestly, you know what I'm saying? They're gonna compare it, and that's the problem. Like, you don't have anything else to compare it to. You know what I'm saying? Like, everything else is looked at as a failure. Championships, and that's ladies back to playing together, and all striding into one goal, man. So I'm proud of the Lady Vols getting I think Holly did a great job. I love Holly. I'm biased also. You know, she was there when I was there, and I watched her coaching, and I know what she brings to the game. I just think, man, it's for her to walk in those shoes right after Coach Summer left. I don't know if anybody else could have done that either outside of Holly. So I think I always give her credit for that. Just having the bold gumption, if you will, to walk into those shoes and accept having that job and going in and out day in and day out.
Ron, I was going to transition to men's basketball, but yeah, I want to talk a little bit more about the women's game too, because there's just a lot there, because they don't just play UConn, they play LSU, and LSU is Kim Mulkey. And you know, I'm with you with Holly. I understood why she was let go when Kelly Harper came. Do you think that do you think the pressure was added because do you think there was maybe – you don't want to say – do you think there was maybe a step back that the program took, unfortunately, because Pat Summitt was unknowingly coaching with her illness the last couple of years?
Mm-hmm.
And no, it's no one's fault. It's not her fault. But do you think that put the program on a little unstable ground when Holly had to take over?
Yeah, I think so. Because you would realistically like to have a baton handoff. You know what I'm saying, in that situation. And in this case, the baton was, in a sense, dropped, and it just had to be scooped with nobody watching. And you take off and run with it. And I think that's why I give Holly the credit for it. I don't understand a way that it could have been an easy transition outside of her actually going and handpicking somebody and walking them through for 2 or 3 years of how to get this job done. You know what I'm saying? The way to run it and keep this machine rolling on the track. So with it abruptly coming to an end, I thought that was difficult to handle. And I think one thing that gets overshadowed is also, and not to make excuses at all, but what was Holly actually dealing with? Like that was a running mate. You know what I'm saying? Her, Mickey DeMoss, like those are running mates. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't think anyone ever took a step back and was thinking like, man, how is Holly handling this? Because she didn't really have time to grieve. She had to pick up, roll, let's go. You know what I'm saying? So I think all that comes into play. But man, this game, man, this game is gonna be huge, and I think the fans should get behind this team even more so, man, because it won't be long. You know what I'm saying? It won't be long. It's in the DNA. It's in the fabric of the Lady Vols to be great. And once it gets back rolling, like I don't need to see everybody coming back trying to be like, man, we were here in the dark times, and no, if you ain't been there, don't come back. We all right. We'll pick up some little kids and let them roll and raise them the right way. You know what I'm saying? So it's gonna be fun to watch, man. The big time game coming up Thursday. Game day will be in the building. And I think, man, the Lady Vols, they strike it up, get things rolling with this game. UConn dealing with a lot of things, a lot of injured players for big time player team, Paige, and Foot. She's also injured. So, you know, and then Gino, what he had to deal with personally, trying to get back into the flow. But one thing about it, man, they've never cared who struggled or who was doing what situation was happening. They took advantage of whatever team stepped on the floor for the Lady Vols. And I'm speaking on behalf of all the Lady Vols. You step up with that UConn jersey on, be prepared to go to war. You're going to get dragged. We don't care about nothing you got going on. Once you get in between them lines, it's on. It's on. And then I think that leads over to the men's game in Texas, and then backdooring that and wiping up the whole weekend with a big-time matchup against Angel Reese and Coach Morgan and them at LSU.
Ron, we had somebody ask or somebody say, buckle up, Ron. Have you got your seatbelt on? I knew he did. See, Ron's tall. Yeah. And Ron's tall, too, so you can sometimes cut out. I knew you did. Right? You're a beloved Vol.
Yeah, man. I appreciate it. I appreciate everyone making sure I'm safe, man. Yeah, but stretch out a little bit, man. Get cold. This a nice little ride going down here.
Well, let me ask you this: your thoughts on the Georgia game and why Josiah Jordan-James is suddenly so red hot?
I think, man, being able to sit out when you're a veteran and watch the game and see where the team lacks things that you can bring to the game. You know, especially with him being able to be able come back and know that. I think one thing that was lacking was the intent to go and shoot. You know, by guys. If it's not Santi or Zakai, the intent to have I'm gonna go hunt my shot and I'm gonna take what the offense gives me. I mean, the defense gives me. Him getting those open looks, like he hasn't been hesitant, and you can tell he's been working on his shot, even though he's been out nursing the injury. His shot looks a lot more. That's one of the biggest things. Having that veteran by yourself when you walk into not even other people's arenas, but when you go in the SEC play and Kentucky walks into your arena, I remember that feeling coming over me like, golly, man, we got Kentucky today. You know what I mean? Regardless if they're good or not, you know what I mean? You're playing them along with the tradition that goes with them. So it brings a calm, like the calm that it brought to me was having Tony Harris, Vincent Yarbrough, Isaiah Victor, CJ Black, like all those guys that walked through that door before me. So wasn't much expected of me. So I could just kind of sit back, relax, and be like, hey, let's go. You look at guys like Julian Phillips, Tyreek Key, all these guys, Jonas, they do get more time. Tobe, you see these guys when they're playing these teams, going on the road and things of that nature, you need somebody calming. Josiah's that calming force. You know what I'm saying? When you walk away from the bench, Euros, in a sense, even though he's had to sit out a game, you know, you need guys that have walked through that. And so that leadership role of just having that presence around, I think, is a part that he brings to the game that was missing a lot for the Vols.
Ron, do you get a driver from ESPN, or who's taking you down to Auburn?
No, I got a cousin. I got a cousin pushing the ride, baby. We rolling, baby.
Gotcha. Yeah, I worked for ESPN. I had it sounds weird, but we were all picked up at the Hartford airport to take to Bristol. And let's just say that was a big van, but I don't know that it was big enough for all the egos, Ron. It was, I'm not going to mention who was in that van, but
I can only imagine.
It was exploding with egos. I just knew to sit there and keep my mouth shut.
Yeah.
Ron, have a great call, buddy. We appreciate you and look forward to seeing you on the tube tonight, and keep it up. Really happy for you, and thanks for being a part of the show.
Man, no doubt, man. I appreciate it. We get out here and rub elbows with Bruce and push him around down here in Auburn when I get here.
Yeah, I don't know that he goes shirtless anymore. I saw a picture of him.
I'm gonna challenge him. I'm down 18 pounds. I'm gonna take my shirt off immediately when I see him. And tell him, let's reveal it, baby. You gotta show me something. Show me something.
I would like to apologize to you for having to spend your first SEC network coverage game in Auburn. I've told Dave that's the worst SEC town in the country, so the worst town in the SEC. So just wanted to say that.
Hey, all good, man. I'm accepting all challenges right now. I would much rather be going here than Oxford. Just saying.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow. Okay. I said last week Oxford's the better town.
But I never experienced the Grove either, though. So I'm withholding my judgment for a while.
Well, okay. I'll just tell you this. This is before GPS. I got so lost trying to find my hotel in Auburn on some dark 2-lane road in the middle of nowhere that I did pull over and cry for a second. That's the true story. I was like, I just want to find this hotel where my pregnant wife is and go to bed.
I'm glad you made it out, Dave.
It could have gone either way. I felt like that banjo was playing in that movie. Be good, buddy. I appreciate you.
All right, no doubt.
Ron Slay. He'll be on the call for the SEC Network and ESPN. And no, that is that. What was this on Deliverance? That's what I was afraid of. I mean, you don't know what it's like to be pitch black. It was a night game. By the way, Auburn Stadium, I know you don't like the city, but the game atmosphere is way underrated. It's incredible. But you're out in the middle with no GPS, and you don't know really, honestly, you don't have a sun to tell you where east and west is. And you're not, I'm sure there's a North Star somewhere. I didn't know where I was headed.
Was this that 2003 Auburn game where like Casey Clausen was awesome, but Tennessee had no running game whatsoever, and they were down, and then they came back and almost won?
Yeah, you remember some games from my career better than I do. Yeah, I think that was the game. I just remember, 2003. So my wife would have been pregnant. So I remember she wanted to go on a road game with me. So we got a hotel room that had like the hot tub thing so she could relax. And, this is terrible cell phone service too. So she didn't hear from me till like 4 hours after the game when I walked in the door. And I was like, I finally made it. And she was stunned that I was still alive. And so I should have been there by midnight. Smoky Mountain Red said, is it just me or does Kelly remind you a lot of Pat with her looks and mannerisms? Yes, yes, and yes. Doesn't remind me of her wins and success, but reminds me of her mannerisms.
To be fair, I mean, I think Pat Summitt would have adapted, but Pat Summitt's coaching style, her whole focus on defense and rebounding is falling out of favor even in women's basketball. Now, even women's basketball starting to embrace the three-point shot a lot more. And, I think one thing that's helped Kelly Harper, we'll talk about this tomorrow, is I love Tamara Key, but I think Harper had a hard time dealing with all of her post players and her length. And I think she's had to commit a little bit more to the outside game. And that's why Tennessee's on more of a roll now.
Ron Slay, again, brought to you by Zach England of Best of Brock. Zach's got your back, best personal injury attorney in Chattanooga. And if you're looking for a fantastic vehicle, Vols Automotive Group is right there in Callahan, the epicenter of car buying in Knoxville, North Knoxville, just a short drive from anywhere. And you can get the car you want with a great selection, and the service department's going to treat you fairly. They'll do that across the board. They want, they need, and they appreciate your business. I knew Ron had his seatbelt on. I never doubted that. I just wondered if he had a driver all the way from Nashville to Auburn. That's when I was going to be like, man, our time of having Ron on might be coming to a close because he's getting ready to go big time. But I mean, Jay Billis isn't getting any younger. Caleb, he's not.
He's not.
If they need the next cover college basketball from the top to bottom, there's no question in my mind that Ron Slade could do that. But I do love Jay Billis. I think he is very good. All right, so coming up, Todd Helton gets slided by the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame, and I've got a little bit of inside thoughts on that, knowing the family. And I do want to get to that, but, I guess one last thing, and we'll probably discuss it a little bit more, but just with Josh Heupel's contract. Now consider this. So Josh Heupel, hit the like button if you're on board. It helps it open up to new viewers, and we appreciate that. And if you haven't subscribed already, do that. But the thing that I think is impressive too is that contract was up and done by January the 24th. So last I checked, they just played 23 days ago. So this thing was pretty much done. And when you consider that, when you consider you have recruiting, you have the transfer portal, this thing had been worked on for a long time, and there was no question whether or not it was going to happen. That to me is pretty impressive. It shows a commitment, a dedication. You know what you've got. Why wait around? We've seen these things go south before in negotiations. I could go on and on. Aaron Rodgers, anywhere from Aaron Rodgers to Johnny Majors. So why let it even get to that point where it could be a quibble over what you and I would agree? Yeah, $1 million. If you win $8 or $9 million, it's just not a lot of money anymore. It sounds weird to regular Joes like you and me, but that's just not a lot.
It's also a big deal when it comes to recruiting. I've seen coaches flounder because athletic directors did not give them the extension they need. And Dave, that's used in recruiting all the time.
Oh, yeah. You've got to have the 5 years on there. Now, sometimes the 5 years is incredibly transparent, and you can buy them out for a lesser amount. That's actually what Shane Beamer's contract looked like. Not this last one, but the one before. They could get out of it. They didn't have a mega commitment to him because I think they had their question mark. I think they painted themselves in the corner with the wins against Clemson and Tennessee, quite frankly, in a bigger contract. But yes, I mean, this contract, he's going to get a whole lot of cash if for some reason they want to get rid of him. No question about it. Guardian Investment Advisors, GIAplantoday.com. Because we all can video teleconference now, you can get the very best investment advisors in the biz. They'll show you where to put your money and why. They'll give you that type of service that is unprecedented. It is fantastic. That is GIAplantoday.com, Guardian Investment Advisors. And we will be back in exactly 3 minutes. Talk more about Josh Heupel's contract, and something has definitely upset via his Twitter feed Caleb Calhoun, and I advise you to follow him. He is not happy about the Todd Helton situation, so we'll visit on that. And I think I can give a little bit of insight here just momentarily. Give me 3 minutes, and I'll give you a fantastic segment talking balls after this.
Sun, sand, and salt water, the beach is a very relaxing place. Unless you wear contacts. Ow! Open your eyes to the best the beach has to offer with LASIK vision correction from Campbell Cunningham Laser Center. Ah.
Do you want to own the more that owns every job? Then get to Vassy Lawn and Garden in Cleveland and get you a Toro. I'm David Vassy, here to talk to you about Toro. With a Toro Zero Turn, you'll get more out of every minute and you'll reach the finish line faster. At Vassy's, we like to say, no matter if you're mowing 3 acres a week or 11 lawns a day, homeowners and business owners alike find confidence in equipment they can trust from top to bottom.
Vassy Lawn and Garden, Highway 60 North in Cleveland.
Man alive, it's worth the drive.
Hey folks, Gary Viles here, Viles Automotive on Callahan Drive. I've been selling cars here in East Tennessee for 27 years. In that time, I've come to realize it's not about the car. It's about you, the customer. So I'm here to take care of you just like family. Good credit, bad credit, you name it, we can get you taken care of. If we don't have it, we can find it for you. We go across the country to get any vehicle that you want. And here at Viles Automotive, we don't believe in fake numbers. We just give you great deals. And as always, we want, we need, and we appreciate your business.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
Chattanooga, we're at it again. For the 5th year in a row, you voted us best of the best criminal and DUI law firm.
And finalist for best law firm and best personal injury firm.
Thank you for the love, Chattanooga. We won't let you down.
Our family has been creating jewelry since 1986, each piece unique with a story all its own. I'm Rick Terry with Rick Terry Jewelry Designs. I'm a jeweler, and I want to be your jeweler. We're grateful that you chose us to be Knoxville's best jeweler. My family and staff look forward to serving you. So please come see us. Kingston Pike and Campbell Station Road in the heart of Farragut, and downtown on Gay Street, right next to the Tennessee Theater.
So do you think the days of Bruce Pearl taking his shirt off and painting it orange are over with?
I mean, probably. I mean, Bruce Pearl is sometimes to me like the ultimate midlife crisis head coach. Can I just say it? I mean, it's. I'm sorry. I hate to go there.
Well, I mean, it may be apt. I feel like I've gone through 3 midlife crises. So yeah, I mean that maybe he's going to. How old is he now? He's 55.
No, he's 61, I think. Because was he born
really?
Yeah, I think he's 61. He was in his late. Remember, he got started a little bit late because he was in Division II for so long. I think he was probably blackballed by some Division I programs because of the whole Dean Thomas incident.
Yeah.
Which honestly, that's probably why it wasn't a big scandal. Mike Hamilton could have backed him, but quite honestly, it looked really bad when he was the one who put another program in trouble for something 20 years before.
Well, he lied to the university, he lied to the SEC and the NCAA, and you're done.
Level of stupidity of what he lied about too. If he just told the truth, it would have been the most minor violation.
Yeah, it's almost always the cover up. It's the whole Nixon thing. It's the cover up is worse than the crime 9 times out of 10.
Yeah, Bill Clinton. I mean,
yeah, and I certainly don't want to go down a political road, so I can go this way. Both presidents had classified documents at their house, and they looked more defensive than they should have. I mean, does nobody take work home? I know you know a lot more about politics than I do, but it just feels like, I mean, anyway.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm with you.
I have audio editing software. When I worked at a radio station, I had audio editing software on my computer so I could work from home. Technically, that was owned by and I know it's different, but anyway.
No, I'm with you. I mean, it's like if you're like, yes, politicians take classified documents home. That's their work. Everybody takes work home.
Okay, so speaking of taking work home, we have a guy that never took his work back home east, and that's a guy, Todd Helton, who stayed with the Colorado Rockies, and we'll get into the reasons why maybe he didn't make the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame. But how time flies. I can remember being outside of his room, and there was a party and it was going on, and it was so intense at the time that you couldn't get in, but I was standing right outside the room when he got the call on spring break that he was drafted by who originally drafted him out of high school? Padres?
I'm gonna Wikipedia that now.
Yeah, but so I mean, he and I were never buddies or anything, but just everybody from North Knoxville was kind of partying in the same place, and I wasn't good enough like him and Bubba Trammell to get into that NSKIP group. If you're familiar with Knoxville, there was a crew of people that it was before traveling teams, but everybody would go from, be it Levi Field or wherever, and play at NSKIP. And there were like 3 at the same time in the same year in the same class. There were 3 guys that would go on to the major leagues. Bubba Trammell was one, Todd Helton was the other. I can't remember the third. But let's start with this. And not to belabor this point, but frankly, the steroid era has ruined who is selected into the Hall of Fame for me, be it Todd Helton, yay or nay, be it whoever, yay or nay. It used to be a big deal, but now we have this big gap, and the discussion just kind of turns into, should those guys be let in? And it's not the discussion about the players that get in or don't. So to be honest with you, that slipped by yesterday, and I didn't see it until you brought it up, and I saw it on your Twitter feed. You have some pretty strong comments about why Todd Helton should be in the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame. So tell me why, and then I think with some relationships, I can provide a little bit of insight as to maybe his thinking about not getting inducted or personal individual honors. So take off, Caleb.
So Todd Helton has a 953 OPS, which is to me the most important hitting stat there is. It's on base plus slugging percentage. And that's the 23rd best OPS in baseball history. The top 100 career OPS players who had at least 9,000 at bats are eligible for the Hall of Fame. So like not one's playing, obviously, and didn't have ties to steroids, have all gotten into the Hall of Fame except Todd Helton. It's not like he's like 99 or 100. He's number 23, the 23rd best career OPS. That includes former players playing right now, and players tied to steroids. Okay. And that is ridiculous that he's not into the Hall of Fame. I think that him playing at Coors Field, I think is being used against him. I think we know that there's a lot of pop flies that turn into home runs when you play in Denver. Fair enough. But Larry Walker's in the Hall of Fame, and he had his best years in Coors Field. So,
and when I look at the two, I think that Todd Helton is a significantly better player. And I don't know the numbers off the top of my head. When I think of the two, I think Todd is significantly better.
Yeah, and the funny thing about that is Walker had a better couple of years, but overall, Todd Helton was significantly better. The funny thing about Todd Helton is usually high OPSs are for power hitters because analytics and sabermetrics have shown that power outweighs hitting for average. A Derek Jeter is never going to have a high OPS or some, a guy that plays for base hits. Todd Helton was a guy who played for base hits, and he still had a ridiculously high OPS because he constantly got on base.
Beautiful, efficient, compact swing. I thought he was fantastic. I do think flat beer field helped some. I do think that playing in that atmosphere helped some. I mean, if I want to drink a beer, it's going to be a good beer. I'm just going to tell you, it ain't going to be Coors. But anyway, here is a little bit of insight that I think I can provide. I think to a large extent, the individual awards, which it would include the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame, those decisions to not place a significant importance on those was made years and years and years ago. So I knew Todd Helton's dad really well. We worked out at the same facility in Knoxville. And you talk about, winning the gene pool. Here was a guy, God rest his soul, that I think I saw him bench press maybe 5 times, but every time it was 225 for 10 reps. I mean, most people have to work to get to that point. It was just God-given ability. And that was obviously passed on to Todd. But the one thing I remember talking to Jerry Helton about, and he brought it up, I didn't bring it up, is when his contract was up, it's like he needs to make a push to get to the Yankees, or at least a team on the East Coast that gets more pub, because that's going to help him get more awards and those sorts of things. And at the time, I just kind of thought, yeah, playing for the Yankees was cool. But I do think that at that point in his career, which what years did he play again, Caleb?
It's like 97 to 2013, I think. So 17 years.
So this would have been about in the mid 2000s. He was up for a contract, and he could have chose to go to the Yankees. Were slightly in play. Everybody was in play. Todd Helton was one of the players at his peak that could go anywhere he wanted to and get a contract, unless they just had a first baseman that was very similar and in place. So that decision was made at the time by Todd not to go and pursue other opportunities because he was comfortable in Colorado. He has like a 400 acre, 4,000 acre, whatever it is, plot of land out there. So while I agree with everything you said, and I think Major League Baseball is still largely ruled when it comes to personal awards by Eastern voters, kind of like they said the AP was in college football years ago. I don't know that it bothers Todd Helton all that much because of he was able to make a home in Colorado. Now he lives in Knoxville now, but I'm sure he still has that huge, monstrous plot of land that makes you think of Yellowstone. So I would think he would eventually get in. You would know better than I, Caleb. But I think he made that decision that personal awards weren't his thing, weren't his bag, probably 15 years ago. And I think you saw that yesterday when the selection was announced.
I could see that. I think we know that Todd Helton is the ultimate unselfish player. I've heard stories, and we all know, 1994, Peyton Manning and Brandon Stewart commit, and apparently the plan was to start Jerry Colquitt that year, and Manning and Stewart redshirt, and that Todd Helton be there only to help develop Manning and Stewart. And he was he of course became thrust into the starting role for 3 games because Colquitt got hurt. But Helton was there. He was playing as a backup quarterback on a football team to help younger quarterbacks come along. It was the ultimate unselfish type of move by him because he wasn't focusing on going to the NFL. He knew that baseball was his move, and he was going to play and he was playing baseball for Tennessee at the time. And it's hard to not have a ton of respect for a guy that would do something like that, honestly.
Yeah, I know. I'm completely fine with it. And I think he's probably fine with it. Now, it's a little bit, is it different now in Major League Baseball, much like the NBA? Because used to be the NBA, you basically got, a 5-year opportunity to get in. And then if you didn't get in, you had to be in this veterans committee. I mean, what are his chances of getting in next year in the future?
Yeah, so I think that there's I can't remember if it's like you're on the ballot for 5, 7, or 10 years. But the way baseball works is there are people on the ballot, and the voters can select 10 people, and whoever receives 75% of the votes gets in. But the voters can select up to 10 people. Only Scott Rowland got in yesterday. By the way, absolute joke. Scott Rowland is nowhere near Todd Helton's level. He's nowhere near Andrew Jones's level. I mean, it was just an embarrassment that he got in. But so there is a limitation. Here's the problem with what's happening, and you brought up the steroid era. There is a lack of consistency among the different voters. Voters disagree. That's healthy. That's fine. They disagree. Half the voters, maybe less than half, think that it shouldn't matter. Just throw it all out. It shouldn't matter. Just look at the numbers, and if they're in, they're in because it was part of an era. The other half are like, no steroid users should be involved in the Hall of Fame. Well, what you have is these players who have ties to steroids. Yesterday, you had A-Rod, Manny Ramirez, Gary Sheffield, all steroid ties, all on the ballot. Well, voters are using their votes, some of them, on these steroid users who aren't getting in the Hall of Fame because they're not getting enough votes to get into the Hall of Fame. So they're staying on the ballot, which is taking votes away from other players who would be like Todd Helton. This happened to Fred McGriff, who, by the way, got in. I think there was like some players' veterans committee that put him in back in December.
Yeah, I think it was like on his last leg or something to get in.
Absolute travesty that he wasn't in on the first ballot. 2490 hits, 493 home runs. Before the steroid era, 400 home runs got you in the Hall of Fame. There wasn't even a thought. And then they upped it to, no, it's got to be 500 home runs because of how many people hit the 500 home run club during the steroid era. Well, Fred McGriff wasn't doing steroids, and he hit 493 home runs. How are you going to say he doesn't belong? Well, he wasn't getting in because he was on the ballot with so many other steroid users, and there was a select group of voters that was saying, I'm going to vote for these steroid users because I don't think it should be a detriment to getting into the Hall. That's fine. I don't mind if you think that it shouldn't matter, fine. The problem is there was a contingent that didn't believe that. So those players kept staying on the ballot every single year, and it was taking votes away from other players who would have gotten into the Hall because nobody could agree on if those steroid users had gotten into the Hall of Fame on the first try, or if they were just not eligible for the ballot, that would have been better than what's happening, which is they're staying on the ballot every year.
Yep.
And that's causing problems.
Whether it's baseball, football, and basketball, and we've talked it all today, Big Orange Phillies in North Knoxville and Maynardville Pike is your home for fantastic sports entertainment. They've got the TVs, but they've also got cornhole, and they've got billiards. They've got darts if the game gets a little out of hand or a little bit boring, or some Cowboys kickers missing like 15 extra points. Big Orange Phillies in North Knoxville, convenient to Maynardville, convenient to Halls and the Powell location. Travis saying, FYI, if you thumb your nose at awards, the powers that be will definitely penalize you for it. That's absolutely true, and probably more true in Major League Baseball than any other sport. So this just breaking moments ago, if you're listening live, but certainly hit that like button if you're listening later in the day. We're live every day at 10 a.m. Eastern time. So Tennessee assigned athletic director Danny White to a new rolling 6-year contract, paying him $2.2 million. White is believed to be the highest paid SEC AD and top 8 nationally. He's overseen the department that's won 6 SEC titles in 2 years and had record fundraising in 2021, 2022. So whose salary is more appropriate, 2.2 for Danny White or $9 million for Josh Heupel? And your thoughts on this rolling contract that Danny White has received?
Ooh, that's tough. I'm going to go 2.2 for Danny White and say Danny White should be paid higher. Not that I don't think Josh Heupel is a great coach. I think Danny White's less replaceable. I think Danny White is the best athletic director in the country, bar none. I think Tennessee hit a home run with Danny White and the hire of Danny White. Guys, you're going to see this in the future. I'm telling you, I said it yesterday. UCF, within 10 years, will be playing for a national championship because of what Danny White did there. And I think that they are an ahead of the curve athletics program. And you saw what he did at Buffalo. He's the best hirer. Is that a word? He's the best
staffing agency.
Yes, he's the best at hiring in all of college athletics. Guys, look at his hires. They're insane. They've all worked out, every single one of them. And even if they haven't worked out at other places, they've worked out when Danny White's hired them, i.e. Scott Frost. And I'm just saying Danny White knows the fit. I said it was a home run when Tennessee hired him. I didn't say it was a home run when he hired Josh Heupel. But that was a home run. Turned out to be a massive home run. But I've always been high on Danny White. I didn't even think he was in the running for athletic director in 2 years ago. I thought they should have gotten the guy I wanted at the time, or that I thought was best. What's his name, Dave? The one from Chattanooga back in the day, Dave Blackburn. Is that his name?
Yes, David Blackburn, who is now at MTSU.
Yes, I thought he was the best candidate. I didn't even think Danny White was on the radar, and they got him. And that's just, I'm telling you guys, for as long as Tennessee has Danny White, Tennessee is in great shape. That dude is an amazing athletic director. And I mean, he is the best in the business, the most forward-thinking in the business right now.
I thought David Blackburn would get it too at the time. I didn't really know who Danny White was, and I thought for a second they hired the Cowboys quarterback from the early 1980s. That's a different Danny White. I think in this, if I just look at it from the outside looking in, I think that just based off a business model, if $2.2 million is what the market bears for Danny White, then the market's not quite right, because Danny White is able to make a non-revenue sport like baseball at least exciting and probably maybe close to breaking even. I would think. I don't know. I haven't seen the numbers. The budget will come out, but after what they did, the budget comes out in the summer, the review budget. But I would, that's exciting, and that was nothing for a long time. You're smart enough to keep Rick Barnes. Some of the other hires that he has made have been fantastic. So, it's 2.2 for a Danny White is an absolute deal. And, coincidentally, I was working on another project. So these are the hires he's made. Danny White has hired Josh Heupel, of course. He's hired Diana Cantu, women's golf. That was June the 8th, 2021. Soccer, Joe Kurt. That was in April of 2022. Track and field, Dwayne Ross, May 24th, 2022. And cross country, Sean Carlson, June of 2022. So a lot of these guys and gals are still early, and it's a little bit early to judge them. But if you can have somebody head up an athletic department with that many moving parts, and it's $2.2 million. I've been obsessed recently with the crash of 2008, the real estate crash. And those guys that were heading up, that were CEOs of mega companies, much like an athletic department is nowadays in the SEC, were making 40 and 50 million, Caleb. And I know it's all according to scale and where you slot on an itemized budget. But the bottom line is, you get that type of production for $2.2 million, kick him up to $3 million. To me, it's the steal of a century.
I agree. We're underrating how much athletic directors have, how much of a role they have, not just in the hires, but in the success the program has.
Navigating NIL too.
That's huge. You're right. Dave, how often is a coach a average to above average coach maybe, but has a run of success because they had a great administrative support behind them? You told me yourself that in the 90s, Fulmer's legacy of recruiting, that was because Tennessee was ahead of the curve in recruiting, wasn't it? The administration had recruiting tactics that were ahead of the rest of the SEC at the time that allowed them to go national.
They scheduled at a higher level. They had those preseason games, if you remember those. They played Colorado one year. They were on TV a lot, and that wasn't just an SEC thing. That was Tennessee getting themselves on TV. Their facilities were ahead. So, yes, no, I think and on the flip side of that, we're talking about Doug Dickey at the time. Doug Dickey didn't give two you-know-whats about basketball, and it showed. So, yes, I think it proves our point doubly, in that $2.2 million for a guy that can head up everything and provide your football program with exactly what it needs to be at an elite level. What more do you want? I didn't think about him being best in the nation, but you said that, and he's paid accordingly. So he's thought to be top 8 nationally and top in the SEC. I got zero problem with that. Does anybody remember January 2021 when he was hired? That was bad news, Caleb. There was nothing good going on then.
Nothing. And I said though, and this when Tennessee hired Danny White, I thought they basically made the program-saving move hiring him. You had to make a splash for athletic director, because let's look at their previous hires. Mike Hamilton was the AD in waiting, right, from Doug Dickey. He was the guy that he was going to take over for Doug Dickey, and Mike Hamilton made one good hire in Bruce Pearl. Every hire after that was a total disaster, to the point where you've talked about it. He didn't really even have control in the Derek Dooley hire, did he? And
who?
Mike Hamilton.
No. I can remember where I was on a Friday afternoon when I was told he got the job, and they still had yet to interview. Oh, forgive me, I can't remember his name. He was an assistant on
Kippy Brown.
Yeah, Kippy Brown. And I spoke to somebody in Kippy Brown's family, and I said, "Well, are you upset?" And they said, "No, everything's good. We're getting ready to do the interview. You still got a shot." And I was like, "No, he doesn't."
Yeah, that was
horrible. And it was basically taken out of Mike Hamilton's hands in the course of about 12 hours. And when it was done, it was done. And he knew that if he couldn't make decisions like that, he might as well eventually go, and he did.
Well, and this is why I've defended, and at least they're letting Danny White run the show, but this is why, as I've gotten older, I've defended Johnny Majors in the past for his public war words with the boosters at Tennessee. Tennessee's got some really incompetent boosters, and it's almost like Game of Thrones and a power struggle between the boosters who want control of the program. I mean, let's not even get started on the way the Haslams have just completely, have had the program in the thumb of their hand, and look at how Jimmy runs the Cleveland Browns. But
I like Big Jim's role back in the 80s and 90s. He just kind of wrote the checks and let things go. I think it's good that Jimmy Haslam has the Browns so that he stays away from Tennessee.
Oh, I agree. And we don't even need to get into Jimmy Haslam's own issues running his own business that his dad created for him to run that got in a lot of trouble until Warren Buffett saved him.
Yeah, I mean, other than ripping off minority convenience store owners, he was a great guy.
Yeah.
Other than that, he was a fantastic individual. I can tell you that I listened to those tapes, those FBI tapes, and there were some people, one of which may have been a daughter of a former Tennessee basketball coach, but there were some people skimming 20, 30, 40, 50, 60,000 was the top one. They were skimming that a month off of the rebates. A month. God. Not a year. You thought I was going to say a year, didn't you?
Yes.
A month. 20,000 was like, one got to 60, and maybe her dad was a basketball coach at Tennessee. One got to 60, and that's what raised the red flag.
Process of elimination, it's not going to be hard to figure out who you're talking about.
No. And maybe we have mentioned him on this show today. Possibly. Maybe painted his chest.
Well,
all right. So that's.
Let's not forget it. He still managed to drive the company $4 billion into debt while running that scam. So.
Yeah. Portions of the program brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning, cityheatandair.com. Integrity matters. It's getting close to that point where your unit is going to either be under stress from cold or the upcoming spring. Know that with City Heating and Air Conditioning, we're very proud to be associated with them, that they will give you the absolute right recommendation. They'll fix your unit, and they're not just going to say, hey, you need a whole new unit just so they can make a few more bucks. That's not the way City rolls. City Heating and Air Conditioning, cityheatandair.com. For Caleb Calhoun, I'm Dave Hooker. This has been a presentation